Hello and welcome to Nac Edition. I'm Sam Hackett. Today we'll get you up to date on the events and news happening in your community. From the SFA Jazz Band to COVID vaccine updates, we have the information that you need to know. We'll also get to know all about SFA's Hillel student organization ahead of this week's Holocaust Remembrance Day. Nac Edition starts now. The Fredonia Brewery is playing host to the SFA School of Music as the two team up to bring a night of live music to the popular local venue. On Friday, April 16th, the SFA Jazz Band will be performing live at the Fredonia Brewery, located on the corner of North Mound Street and East Hospital Street. Nacogdoches locals can stop by from 6 to 8 p.m. and enjoy the brewery's outdoor venue with an evening of drinks accompanied by a special show performed by both of SFA's jazz bands, the Swinging Axes and the Swinging Aces. For those with an appetite, Shali's Indian Kitchen on Wheels will also be parked at the brewery, serving up some delicious Indian cuisine. There is no entry fee for this event, but you must be 21 years or older to order a drink. For more information about this event, go to visitnacogdoches.org/events. Stray animals deserve a loving home with people who will keep them healthy and happy, and residents in Nacogdoches community feel the same way. Jose Mesa has more on the story.
You know what else is cute? How about multiple puppies and multiple kitties? And you can find them all at the Nacogdoches Animal Shelter.
In the month of March, over 170 animals left the shelter and were either reclaimed, rescued, or adopted. That's a big number considering the size of Nacogdoches. So why are so many people looking to adopt animals? For people like Jasmine, a student here at SFA, adopting and rescuing helps with the stress of school and work.
And any time that school has gotten way too stressful, I can usually just lean on her. Where she's a really smart dog, and she knows when I'm starting to get stressed out, and she'll come up to me and like try and distract me from whatever it is that I'm doing.
The impact rescuing or adopting an animal has on a person is great and can actually help out oneself and the community.
I really recommend people getting dogs from the shelter or just like rescuing dogs in general. You never know what kind of benefits that you can get from the dog, and even sometimes you might even end up being like the emotional support person for that dog.
So if you're looking to take home a critter today, or maybe just spend an afternoon with these cute puppies and kitties, come stop by the animal shelter. And remember, adopt, don't shop.
Thank you, Jose, for that moving story. Animals truly are one of life's greatest treasures. The 2020 street paving project for the city of Nacogdoches is finally wrapping up as sidewalks are currently being expanded in town. As a part of Texas Department of Transportation's Road to Zero initiative, crews have been laying asphalt to create new Nacogdoches sidewalks on North Street leading down to West Star Avenue. According to Public Works Assistant Case Opperman, crews have been demolishing the bridge at Pioneer Park and relocating the road at Pioneer Drive to connect further east at Lydia Street. Funded by the Texas Department of Transportation, this is all part of a $2 million project with the delineant goal of reaching 0 deaths on Texas roadways by the year 2050. The crews will be finishing this project over the next weeks by working at Lady Elaine Drive and Dolph Street. After Texas Governor Greg Abbott lifted the statewide mask mandate in March, many area school districts have changed their own mask policy. Central Heights and Cushing ISDs have either eliminated or modified their mask wearing requirements. Central Heights ISD posted on Facebook that the school board voted to make masks optional at their monthly meeting in March. The post also stated that the school district will continue to practice physical distancing and cleaning strategies according to TEA guidelines. Cushing ISD released a resolution stating that all face coverings will be no longer required to be worn by any person on school property. They said the mask wearing is optional, but like Central Heights, the district's COVID-19 protocols will remain in place, including but not limited to quarantine and close contact requirements. Aside from Central Heights, Cushing, and Chirino ISD, No other school districts in the area have made changes to their mask policy. This week, I had the chance to talk with SFA students about their perspective regarding the COVID-19 vaccine. Let's take a look.
With Governor Greg Abbott's announcement that as of March 29th, all adults in Texas would be eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine, many college students are left with a decision to make. SFA students are no exception. Some students, like junior political science major Thomas Martin, have already made that decision to receive the vaccine.
I have received the Moderna COVID vaccine with my first dose in January, my second dose in February. I was super fortunate to have it, and I did have some light skepticism about it in the beginning, but after some research and understanding that even though it was a quick process, it went through all the same basic medical precautions, I felt very comfortable with taking it.
While other students, like human science major Lindsay Lightfoot, are waiting on their second dose.
So I have received part 1 of my vaccine, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. You know, I've had a lot of anxiety about COVID, and as a student wanting to travel and just get more opportunities. So with that, I'm just really grateful to have a vaccine out there.
While other students still remain skeptical and are holding off on their vaccine, like sophomore finance major Josh Pointer.
I have not received the COVID vaccine yet. One of the big things, the reasons I haven't is because I don't have any previous health conditions, so I'm not worried about receiving it yet. I'm letting other people go through it to get it first.
While receiving the vaccine still remains a personal choice, SFA supplied 1,100 doses of the Moderna vaccine for students last Wednesday with hopes to host more clinics in the future.
I do believe SFA does have avenues to receive the shot for all the students.
Currently, I do think that there are a good amount of ways for students to get the vaccine.
There's so many different resources. SFA has given many different opportunities for faculty and staff and students to get the vaccine, which is really awesome.
One thing is for sure, with every vaccine, we inch closer to the end of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Vaccines are vital to the future of our country, but it is completely one's own choice to get it. With much of Texas being affected by the winter storms that surged across the state in February, it left a trail of devastation in its wake. One of those things devastated by the storms are the Nacogdoches' favorite azalea flowers and the Gala Miz Gardens outside of campus. Nacogdoches city garden officials believe that out of the 7,000 plants that they hold in the garden, they hold 550 forms of azaleas, and the storm has affected them all. With many surviving the cold conditions, the storm itself brought its own problem to the trails and surrounding garden areas. On top of the damage to the flowers themselves, the Gala Miz Gardens and its trails have been closed until further notice due to damage caused by the storms. The cleanup task of removing broken tree limbs and branches is a lengthy process. City guide officials, as the cleanup and care of the azalea garden trails will not be ready for the public until late April, early May. The state legislature named Nacogdoches the garden capital of Texas for a reason, and it's clear folks hope for a speedy cleanup and recovery. In partnership with the Office of Multicultural Affairs, SFA Hillel, a student group that focuses on their own Jewish journey, will host the university's first official Holocaust Remembrance event. Taking place in the Baker Patillo Student Center in the Grand Ballroom, the Holocaust Remembrance Day event will take place on April 8th. Hungarian Holocaust survivor Dr. Zsuzsanna Ostvath will be the event's keynote speaker. This event is for participants are encouraged to reflect on how current and historical anti-Semitism shapes the lives of those of Jewish heritage. Jade Gordon, the co-president of SFA Hillel, says it's important to recognize this day because it is a way of keeping the memory of the Holocaust alive. Having Ostvath as the keynote speaker, students will have the opportunity to hear her story. For more information about OMA's slate of Diversity Week events, visit sfasu.edu/OMA. For SFA Hillel information and updates, follow the organization on the Instagram at SFASU_JSU. After this, we'll have the great honor of sitting down with a special guest and getting to know all about the SFA Hillel student organization here on campus. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back to Nac Edition. I'm your host, Sam Hackett. Joining me today in studio is SFA Hillel advisor Dr. Flora Farago. Dr. Farago, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you
so
for
much
having me.
Thank you for joining us. So we'll just get right into it then. This year's first Holocaust Remembrance Day is being organized by the Office of Multicultural Affairs and SFA Hillel organization. So for those who aren't familiar with what the Hillel organization is, how would you describe it?
So SFA Hillel is it's one chapter of a larger organization called Hillel International, and we're actually a subchapter of Houston Hillel. Very briefly, Hillel in the U.S. and globally represents a network of university campus organizations that serve Jewish students.
Okay, and you said we are the SFA chapter here is a subchapter of Houston.
Yes.
How many chapters are there in Texas?
I'm actually not exactly sure, but I do know that UT Austin, Texas A&M, most major universities in Texas do have a Hillel chapter. But again, we fall under the Houston Hillel umbrella. Rice, University of Houston, as well as SFA fall under the executive leadership of Houston Hillel.
Okay, so what are some of the opportunities then students have if they join the Hillel organization?
That's a great question. First of all, let me just make it clear, we are inclusive. You do not have to be Jewish. If you're Jewish, you could be an atheist, you could be religious, you could be culturally Jewish. We are very inclusive. And some of the events we do is, in addition to celebrating Holocaust Remembrance Day, we hold social events. Pre-COVID, we had a big nice Shabbat at Shirley Waterston's house, who's a local retired professor. We also do some volunteer engagement events. And it's just a great way for students to get connected, learn about their Jewish identities, or just learn about anything related to Judaism that they are interested in.
Awesome. Sounds like an awesome organization for students to get a part of here.
Yeah.
So my next question is, how big of an honor is it for the SFA Hillel organization to have the opportunity to speak with Dr. Ozvath? And how did this opportunity come along?
That's a great question. So first of all, it is an incredible honor to have a living Holocaust survivor on campus. If you think about it, most Holocaust survivors this day are in their late 80s and 90s. So in a couple years, we will not have any living survivors. So to have somebody who is not only a survivor, but a Holocaust studies scholar on campus to speak to Nacogdoches and beyond is a tremendous honor. And the credit for this event really goes to our co-president, Jade Gordon, who is a history major here on campus. She's an undergraduate student who thought of this event and she's the brainstorm behind it. Just to clarify, Holocaust Remembrance Day is a national or international celebration or commemoration, but this is the first time that this campus will have an official Holocaust Remembrance, or Yom HaShoah as it's known in Hebrew. It's the first time we're having it on campus.
Okay, so going back to Dr. Ozvath, you said she was a scholar as well. I noticed you brought some books along with you today.
Yes. So this is her memoir. It's in English and in Hungarian, called When the Danube Ran Red, and it's available on Amazon. The Hillel students, some of them are actually reading this book right now. And again, this is Dr. Ozvath's memoir and her experiences growing up in Hungary and surviving the Holocaust as a child. So it's a very personal and emotional memoir.
Well, it sounds like the event is going to be very, very, what's the word I'm looking for here? Very informative for students.
Yes.
So with all those things, what are some of the things that students and the community can expect from this event this year?
Yes, so first of all, the event is both in person and on Zoom, and Dr. Ozvath is the keynote speaker, so you can expect to learn about the relevance of this event, how anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish hatred is still a very real problem in the world today. And so attendees can expect to learn about the Holocaust, and the significance of that is really to honestly face our past and to not shove the dirty aspects of our past under the rug. And so what we are really hoping to do is that attendees will reflect on the Holocaust, on anti-Semitism, and be inspired to take some action in their own lives and in the community to combat social ills. I just want to put it out there that Hillel is very concerned with social justice issues beyond those affecting Jews. So we are very aware that in 2021, anti-Asian hatred, anti-Black racism, misogyny, transphobia, homophobia are real and alive. And so it's so important for all of us to see the interconnections among these social justice issues and just to look at the past, learn from it, and just be bound not to repeat it.
So that actually leads me to my next question. So with Holocaust Remembrance Day around the corner, this is obviously a time to take a step back and look at all the lessons that humanity's been able to learn. Do you see any parallels in modern history where these same lessons can be applied?
Absolutely. I mean, as I just mentioned earlier, we see attacks on Asians, Asian Americans, police brutality targeting communities of color, especially black folks, not exclusively. And so, again, I think, although I'm optimistic, I doubt we'll ever wake up in a world where all social justice issues are behind us, because new things will arise, old things will arise. And so it's so important for all of us to look inside and do what we can do in our own lives to stop these social ills from, from impacting marginalized communities.
Okay, so you said this was the first year this event has been happening, and you said the co-president is kind of the brains behind all of this. Do you see this being something that can be repeated each year around Holocaust Remembrance Day?
We really hope that this will not be just a one-off and not just a, sort of a moment, but sort of a movement. It is nationally. In Israel, this is a national, or internationally, it's actually an international holiday, Holocaust Remembrance Day. And so we really hope that at SFA, this is something that can be organized again. And we, again, just want to acknowledge that the Office of Multicultural Affairs has been a tremendous support. And although this is the first time we are organizing SFA, sort of a Holocaust Remembrance Day, the Office of Multicultural Affairs has some tremendous social justice focused events on a regular basis that I encourage students, faculty, and staff to participate in.
Okay, so obviously this is a huge event for the Student Hillel organization here. What are some of the things they may have coming up next? Is there anything in the works?
So because of COVID and the pandemic, we've had some difficulty organizing in-person events. So, and the semester ends in May, so this will likely be the last Hillel event for the semester, but we have some exciting things coming up. You can follow us on social media or Google SFA Hillel and get in touch with us.
And for students who are interested in joining, you said you don't have to be Jewish, just interested in
Not at all.
making a difference. So what is the process like for students who would like to get involved?
So anybody can join, and again, we have an Instagram account, we have Facebook, or if you just Google SFA Hillel, Jade Gordon's name will come up. You can email her, or if you forget all of this, what I've said, just Google Office of Multicultural Affairs, get in touch with them, and they'll then let you know how to join. It's very easy. Any student can join. It's open to all. And again, some of our students are Jewish, some are not Jewish. We take interfaith and cross-cultural connections very seriously as well.
Sounds like a fantastic organization. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Farago, for talking a little bit more about the SFA Hillel organization and the big event coming up for Holocaust Remembrance Day. Coming up next, we have Sam Johnson to give us some insight on what travel will look like during COVID-19. Stay with us. During COVID-19 has been difficult for most people, and there are certain things you may not know about before traveling to different states or countries. Here is Sam Johnson with more tips and information.
Vaccinations are ramping up, and it's likely that many of you watching this have already gotten your shot or will be getting one soon. Like me, you're itching to finally get back out and travel after a year of staring at Zoom calls. With the weather warming up and the number of fully vaccinated people growing every day, you're probably ready to start booking hotels and flights for spring and summer vacations. So in this segment, I'll break down some tips and some travel guidelines from the CDC, as well as what travel will probably look like in the coming months as things like health passports and vaccine requirements begin to crop up around the country and internationally. Last month, the TSA reported the highest number of air travelers in a single day since March 15th of last year, at over 1.3 million people. So you may be wondering, is air travel actually safe right now? Well, the good news is the CDC just gave the green light for vaccinated Americans to travel and has confirmed that travel's pretty much completely safe as long as it's been 2 weeks since you've gotten your final dose of the vaccine.
So today we are releasing an update to our guidance for fully vaccinated people. Specifically, the new guidance today speaks to travel. We state that fully vaccinated people can resume travel at low risk to themselves. For domestic travel, fully vaccinated people do not need to get a COVID-19 test before or after travel and do not need to self-quarantine after travel.
However, it's still important to keep wearing those masks in places like planes and buses because we still don't know if vaccinated people can asymptomatically spread the virus. The bad news is, if you were hoping to capitalize on those cheap pandemic flights, that ship has sailed, as travel prices are expected to begin rising very soon in light of the increasing vaccinations and lifting of restrictions. And let's not forget those vaccination cards. You may have heard talk of systems like Israel's vaccine passport or Green Pass, which allows citizens there to attend sporting events, concerts, and other public gatherings by showing a digital proof of vaccination. Even though the United States hasn't adopted a national vaccine passport like Israel's Green Pass, it's still important that you hang on to that vaccination record card if you have one. And no, not just for free donuts from Krispy Kreme. Most cruise ships and some venues, for example, are requiring proof of vaccination. New York just lifted restrictions on large venues and catered events, but will require proof of vaccination or a recent negative test for entry. And if you're counting on a national vaccine passport, don't hold your breath. The Biden administration has said that there are no plans for a federal vaccine passport, and that the government will instead assist third-party companies in making apps for COVID vaccination passes. In fact, there's already a few that are being tested, like Common Pass and New York's Excelsior. However, there's really no clear date when these kinds of apps might become commonplace, so it's important that you don't lose that vaccination card, because as of right now, it's your only way to prove your vaccination status. And while proving vaccination status isn't required for flights right now, there's good reason to believe that could change in the future, and in some cases, proof of vaccine can waive a mandatory quarantine when traveling to certain countries. You may be wondering, if this vaccination card is so important, how do I keep that card safe, and what do I do if I lose it? As far as keeping it safe goes, both Staples and Office Depot have offered to laminate vaccine cards for free. There are some caveats to this, though. If you're getting the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine, make sure you've gotten both doses marked on the card and take photos of the card before laminating, as the lamination process could potentially smudge the ink and make it illegible. And if you've lost or damaged your card, you should be able to contact your vaccine provider to get another copy. So, just to recap, if you're fully vaccinated, feel free to fly and travel, but stay masked up in public spaces, and as of right now, most travel activities don't require you to be fully vaccinated, but it may exempt you from mandatory quarantines when traveling internationally. And of course, make sure to keep that vaccine card safe. The science on COVID-19 is constantly evolving, so it's important to stay informed and travel safe. Back to you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam, for that very useful information. It's good to know that traveling during COVID-19 is possible and can be done in an effectively safe way. Has it ever crossed your mind how much it would cost to buy a city, and more specifically the city of Manhattan? Maybe you thought, how much would a metropolitan area cost back in the 1600s? Well, you've come to the right place, because we have some answers for you. In 1626, the indigenous people of Manhattan sold the entire island to the Dutch for a mere $24 worth of beads and trinkets, which back then seems like a lot, but now seems more like pocket change. This was such a specific part of the city's history that it ultimately became the birth certificate of New York City. But unfortunately, the details of this exchange remain slim. Historians are unclear on how this exchange occurred and why the indigenous people who lived on the land for centuries gave it up for so little. For more evidence and background history on this supposed historic exchange, visit livescience.com. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Nac Edition. I've been your host, Sam Hackett. We'll see you next week.